Hey everybody, and welcome to another CRICUT craft tutorial. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays with the occasional live bonus video. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to use two different types of HTV that have different pressing temperatures and times. So today we're going to make this really fun tote bag, and I did mine with the Ohio State theme, and I used a printed pattern by Caesar. These are printed on site at 651 vinyl, and I did this in the Ohio State. And then we're going to use the Starcraft Printable HTV to do the little Brutus Buckeye. And I'm going to show you guys how to do this so that you can not mess up your printable vinyl while adding on your printed pattern. And I love this printed pattern. If you guys can see, it's polka dots and it is red and gray. So I thought it would be perfect to do a fun Ohio State theme in this. These polka dots are so fun because they come in lots of different color choices and they're great for your sports teams. So let's go over to Design Space so we can get started. To add to our Ohio State here, we're going to put a little Brutus the Buckeye on here as well. And he's going to be done with a print then cut. So what I did was I just uploaded a clip art of him and just removed his white background. So we'll insert him in, and I'm inserting him here so that we kind of have a sizing reference because I kind of know how big I have on the bag, but I also want to see how big it's going to look against the state. The only thing I have yet to really like about this desktop is I cannot figure out how to get it to let me zoom out. Like on the other one, you can just hold Control and it will zoom out, or hit Control and hit the minus key and it won't let you zoom out on this one, so I don't know. I actually think that's pretty good. I might make him a little bit shorter, actually. That's probably pretty good, yes. So I just made him a little bit shorter, but we've already cut out the state. So here's just a quick little tip. If you hit this little eyeball over here, it makes that disappear, and then it just leaves you with the piece that you need. So we're going to click on Make It, and it's already going to load up our image, and you can see our print then cut image is right here. With this, you do not mirror it or anything. You just send it right to the printer. I have a Canon Pixma MG3022, and I know I'm going to get a million comments asking me what kind of printer I have. It's a Canon Pixma MG3022. So I leave my bleed on for this because it's going to cut around his edge, and we want to try to make sure we have as little white around him as possible. And then we're just going to click print, and it's going to send it over to our printer. You guys don't need to see it printing. You've seen them print a million times, but it just takes a second and it's going to print it out, and then I'll show you guys how to cut it. Here we have our image all printed, and you can see the registration lines. So all you do is you just place it on your mat like you would any other vinyl. You just set it down, and you want to try to get it pretty straight and even. And for this, we're going to set this to cut on rice paper. So I'm going to load it real quick, and I'm sorry I totally just bumped you guys, but I got to move a couple things out of my way. So we're going to set it to cut on rice paper, which you can just do by browsing all materials and search for rice. And you can do this with your Explorer or your Maker. With the Explorer, just have your dial set to custom. And then we're just going to hit go. And it's going to scan your registration marks, which is what it's doing here with the little light. Now, some people do have some issues with the light reading. Some tips: turn off all the lights in your room, or at least dim the lights. You can also try to close the lid of the machine. Sometimes your copier or your printer just isn't making the lines dark enough, and that can definitely be a huge issue for you. So it's going to go ahead and detect our tool. It's going to then set it up, which it's finalizing as it says, and you'll see that it's going to cut around our Buckeye. Now the thing is, you'll see there's white on him, so we wanted to make sure that we didn't cut out any of like those spaces, so we left those whole because those will show up when we put this on our product. But the best part about that is it's not going to cut all those little spaces out, so keep that in mind when you are making these. So let's let this finish cutting, and then I'll show you guys how to weed it. When you weed this, you do want to be careful because you don't want to scratch your ink. So you're going to start at the edge, and I usually will just peel this back a little bit to where I can find an edge, and I use my pin pen, and I just gently get it under the edge. Now this is a little bit hard to do from this angle, but I'm trying to do it so you guys can see it, or at least get the idea, because it is pretty small. And once you've kind of started that edge, you can usually peel a lot of it by hand. You will feel it's very soft, but you do want to be careful not to rip it. And if you need to guide it a little bit, you can use the edge of your pin pen and just get it around the edge of your cut. So you don't have to go too crazy. And most of it will come off, no problem. With this, remember you guys, you don't want to cut all the way through it. You just want to cut enough to get the backing off. And if you're ever going to print and cut something that's really small, you can totally reuse this sheet, which is really nice. Sometimes going around these edges can be a little bit tough, so I will actually peel this part away from those like little curves, and that way I can get around them a little easier, because now I have like his foot out and I can easily just lift up his foot a little bit. But those curves can sometimes be a little bit tricky, like around arms or legs or whatever you're cutting, so you just want to be careful with those because you don't want to rip it. But it is pretty durable, but you do just want to be careful. So same like here where he's got a little arm part here, we're going to go ahead and pull that off. And this is kind of just a matter of like how you want to do it. I mean, not everyone weeds the same, which is totally fine. So you just kind of got to find what works for you. But for me, this is what works for me, and I just think it's a little bit easier. So it's kind of nice. So all I do is just pull this part away from his arm over here. And again, I just find it so that I don't rip it, and I want to make sure that I get his arm. So I just keep turning it around and moving things so that I can easily access these parts to lift them up off of the mat. And now with this one, guys, being like a full solid piece, we don't have to use the heat transfer mask on him, because we can just put some parchment paper over him when we press him, and it'll be really, really easy, because we don't need to use any of that transfer mask. Now, if you had small pieces, or he was a couple pieces and you want to keep the design together, I would recommend using a transfer mask. But there is our little Buckeye, and he's going to go with our Ohio State. I'm going to go over to the heat press and show you guys how we press two different kinds of HTV. Working with the patterned printed vinyl, this is HTV, you do cut with the color side up and you don't mirror. So when you load it, you want to make sure your color side is up and you're not mirroring. You're going to cut this on everyday iron-on. Go ahead and put that in and load it. And I know that your machine, like your screen, is going to tell you to make sure to mirror. Load it shiny side down. Ignore that, because this is a different type of product. Because this is the side we want to see, and then the adhesive is actually on the back of it. And you're going to need to use a carrier sheet to take this off of your mat, or off of your backing. And we'll show you guys how to do that. It's super duper easy, but what I love about this is that you're getting the team colors all in one sheet versus having to buy two separate colors. And it's going to look really cute once it's all cut out and your design is on your shirt. I obviously have the Ohio State colors, and so scarlet and gray, but these come in a ton of different colors, so you pretty much cover most of your college football teams, and I'm sure there's some that are like perfect for your high school teams. There's a couple that will work for NFL teams as well, but these are awesome. They're great, super easy to work with, and they're just really cute, and you can do a lot. They come in both HTV and adhesive. So I'm going to let this finish cutting out. It may take a moment, and then I'm going to show you guys how easy this is to weed. For the printed patterned vinyl, which is this is the HTV, we are going to need to use heat transfer mask because it doesn't have a cover for it, so it does not have a carrier sheet. So all you do is you just get this separate sheet, which is just a sticky sheet of the heat transfer mask, and you can use a leftover piece if you needed to from like another project, but you do want to make sure that if you're doing that the piece you're using is clean, because if it's not, you're going to end up with that hair or glitter or whatever else may be stuck in that, and nobody wants that on their project. So you're going to just need the heat transfer mask, which is pretty inexpensive, and you can reuse this sheet too if you wanted to. So all this is just like a opaque looking background, and then the top part is clear. So I just apply these just like I do with regular transfer tape, is where I lay this upside down, and then I put my HTV on top of it. So I did cut this one pretty close. So we'll, oopsies, try not to screw it up because this is the only sheet I have of this. So just be careful when you lay it down. Don't get a bubble like I just did because you're going to end up with a mess. So we're going to just try to fix this real quick. Luckily, it's pretty easy to work with. It's not, I mean, it's sticky, but it's not like so sticky that you can't deal with it. Oops, I just got a wrinkle. So if you need to, you can absolutely like kind of come over and like I messed up a little bit here where it kind of decided it wanted to hold on to it too quickly. So I just need to move this a little bit, and it's a little staticky, which kind of helps the original mask. So like your part that this is on, so where your like H is, it's a little staticky. So again, guys, this is just proof that nobody's perfect. It just stuck too quickly, and I just, everything wants to stick to it. Because the heat transfer mask is pretty gosh darn sticky. So I might need to use my pin pen too to help me kind of remove that where I need it to be. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to reach over. The pin pen is a multi-useful tool. So right now, for some reason, my H is being a little goofy and it doesn't want to move. And I think it's just because it's so staticky. So I'm going to fix it real quick. Just going to use my pin pen and we're just going to lay it back down. So it's perfectly fine, fixed the issue. So all you do is you just lay it down. And again, you just be careful, you don't want to get bubbles in it or anything like that. Most of those will press out, but so now all I'm going to do is flip it back over. And I do have a little bit of a wrinkle, but that's okay. It'll come out because it's just on the transfer sheet. It's not actually on the HTV. And then you just like you do with regular transfer tape is you just press it down. So it's really easy to use. And then when you go to peel it, which of course it's very sticky, which is good. And then you go peel it, you can peel your backing, so your original part that was stuck to your HTV, you can actually just peel that off. And that's how you make sure that your HTV, and again, this stuff literally sticks to everything. And there you go. Your HTV is ready to use, but you must have the heat transfer mask. So I think the heat press is ready, so we'll get that going. We're ready to put down our StarCraft. So I have our heat press set to 350. It's actually 352. Mine seems to be off a little bit just because I think it might be because of my electrical. But what we're going to do is put our little guy down. Now I do have some fabric in here to use as a pressing pillow to raise it up over the seams. And then I just have a little piece of parchment paper. And we're going to lay that on top of him. And you just want to make sure he's where you want him. And I think that's pretty good. And then we do use a pretty heavy pressure on this. It's a high pressure. So you're going to press down. Not always the easiest. And then you're going to let it go for 30 seconds. They have tested these bags before they even put them on their website to make sure that you really cannot melt them. They will do whatever it takes to make sure that these aren't going to be destroyed by you. You cannot screw these up. They're really easy to use. They're 100% cotton, so they're canvas bags, and they are really nice quality. I have checked all the stitching and stuff. They're very, very nice. They are $4.49, and they come in this canvasy color, so the natural and black. So now we're going to lift this up, and this is going to stick a little bit to him, and I'll usually let him cool down before I pull that off. But while we're waiting, I'm going to set this back because we're going to put our HTV on, and we're going to need that set to 305. So all I'm going to do is hit set, and I'm just going to take this down to 305. And it will take a little bit to cool down, and then we only need to do it for about 15 seconds. So we're going to just take it down to 15 seconds. Oops, I went too far. And set, and set, and set, and you're done. So you can either take this off the heat press if you want, or you can leave it on. I'm just going to leave it on. I'm just going to peel my parchment paper off. And you can see that he is stuck on there really, really nicely. He looks really, really good. So we'll let this go ahead and cool down a bit. And once it's cooled down to the 305-ish, we can put our printed pattern on. We're ready to do the printed patterned vinyl, which is this adorable polka dot. But there's a couple things that you want to make sure of when you're placing these items on, especially if you already have your StarCraft. So you want to make sure that your carrier sheet is nowhere on your StarCraft printable. And we're going to press this, and I'm going to move this over because it is hanging off just a little bit, but I might actually move this over a little bit too. I think it's a little far to the one side. And like I said, I just have to make sure that my carrier sheet isn't touching my Buckeye here, Brutus. So we'll go ahead and put that on. It's over him just a little bit, so I just want to make sure that it's not. So in order to do that, I just move it over. And then you need to make sure that you cover you need to make sure you cover any printable part with the parchment paper once again. That is so that it doesn't stick to anything like your Teflon sheet or anything like that. So again, I'm going to move this over just so I make sure that this is fully on the mat, and we're going to press this down, and we're going to, again, this is a little bit tough because it's got to be at a pretty good pressure. It says medium to heavy, so that's about a medium to heavy pressure. I've had a couple people ask. I do have my Teflon sheet magnetically applied, so I don't have to take it off, but you do always want to use a Teflon sheet. And then we're going to pull this over here, and I always just kind of do a quick check, and it's not completely stuck down here, which I kind of had a feeling it wouldn't because the fabric isn't quite all the way down there. So if you need to repress, it's okay, you can. But again, you just want to make sure that you're being very careful with your StarCraft. And I should have made sure that my fabric was down all the way. There we go. Okay, and we're also probably going to run into a little bit of an issue because of this little piece. So as you can see, it's kind of folds funny here at this corner. But that's, you know, it's okay. It's just sort of in the way. So you'll want to work around a lot of that when you're doing these. And you'll just try your best. You can't always get it perfect, and it's never going to sit perfectly, but you can do your best, and pressing pillows do help with that. So I'm going to press this one more time real quick. And again, just make sure your parchment paper is over your printed pattern. Now, the rest of it looks like it's stuck, so I don't know that I need to go all 15 seconds, but we might just do that just to be safe. Sometimes you do kind of have to play. Some people can do these at like 285. It just seems to depend on the fabric that you're doing it on. Most of the time, I have to do 305 if I'm using most of my products. So let's see if this stuck. So you're just going to peel this just like you would any other HTV. And I do think I'm running into a few little issues. But I'm going to let this cool real quick because it's really hot to the touch. And we'll come right back. Okay, I've let this cool down because it is a warm peel. I would always just do a little quick check. You can move your parchment paper off of your printable, and then you just peel it just like you would any other HTV. So you don't have to be too crazy with it. You just peel it right on off. And again, you can save this if you'd like. I did save my backing, so I'm going to save this. I'll take this over to our workspace so you guys can get a good look at it. Our finished tote. I love being able to combine the different types of HTV to create such cute things. So that we have the StarCraft printable HTV, and then we have some printed patterned HTV in polka dots. These polka dots are fantastic because you can combine both colors for your team and support your team by just having to purchase one piece of vinyl. And it's really cute, and I just love how fun it is, and it really brings some interest to your item. I hope you guys had a great time learning how to apply 2 different types of HTV to your products. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm always happy to answer those for you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos all the time. Hit the bell icon. That will alert you to when I post a new video. Have a great day and happy crafting.